everyone, my name's Mike and welcome to the video. Today we've got an absolute cracker. We're covering 3 bikes that we have previously covered in videos, but when we did them our videoing skills weren't quite what they are now and our equipment wasn't quite as good, so we thought it'd be good to do a revisit of them and good to ride them all together and see how they compare, and also it's just a good excuse to get out and roar around on beautiful 1960s 1970s British bikes. So what we've got are 2 of them are Dave's, 1 of them is Richard's. So the 2 Bonnevilles are Dave's. So one is 1968 T120R, then we have Richard's Triumph Trophy TR6C, which has got those beautiful high level pipes on it, and the last one excuse me, is Dave's T140V, so that's a 1975 Bonneville. The 2 750s, 1 650, the TR6 is a 650, but we just take them out for a roll round South Shropshire, and wonderful day. Bit chilly, but it was fantastic. So yeah, great fun. So before we get on to that, we'd just like to ask, if you haven't subscribed to us, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe and give us a like, because it does make a big difference, and we seem to have stalled on our subscribers for some reason. We're kind of stuck, and it doesn't cost you anything. It just means for us, it just gives us a wider spread, so more people get to see our videos. So if you think we're worth it and you enjoy what we do, and we'd really appreciate it. So thank you very much for that, and thanks to Rich and Dave for letting me loose on the bikes. It was great. And with that, on with the show. Okay, so first up I'm on the 1968 Bonneville, and I haven't edited this out. I start at first kick, which doesn't last all day. This is early in the day. There's Dave getting ready, and watch how he starts his 75 Bonneville. Wham, first kick, away we go. There's Richard in the far left in the white helmet, he's on the TR6C. They make quite a spectacular viewing. Not a lot of people are interested in old bikes these days, to be honest. The bikers stops, I don't quite understand it, but there you go. But first up, just look at it. Just look at those clocks. There we go. Just listen. Fantastic's that sound. So yeah, look just how beautiful it is, that red tank and the gold Bonneville script, and those the export handlebars on it, and the chrome bezel clocks. It's just such a beautiful thing, beautiful bike to ride. So I think we're going to get onto some more roads that will suit the riding of the bikes, but again, just listen to this. This one in particular, I think has got the nicest exhaust note on it. I don't know if the pipes are slightly different, but Dave's done quite a lot of work on these bikes. Like this one, it's got lead shot in the handlebars, which is like one of his tricks for keeping the vibrations down. But the most critical thing that Dave reckons, and he's done it to all 3 of the bikes, is to get the crank dynamically balanced. This has also got a electronic ignition, sleeved ammo carbs, and he's raised the gearing on it slightly, and I think he's done that because it's got a 750cc conversion on it. So it does go really well. And also, what else has he got in it? He's got megacycle cams and billet conrods, and he's got those in all three of them. So it's no wonder it goes well, and it does go well. This, when you think it's a 60-year-old bike, and it pulls beautifully. When I first rode this, it had a slipping clutch in the previous video. But Dave spent a lot of time, done a lot of work on this bike, and it just it's like a tiger. That's for want of a better word. It goes really well. It pulls very strongly. It's very healthy. Where it's different from the newer Bonneville, like Dave's riding in front, is the suspension's not quite as compliant. It is a bike from 1968. The brake isn't quite as good, and we talk about that and the reasons why later on in the video. It's certainly very usable. There's a lot of worse bikes from this era that I've ridden in terms of the braking. But one thing that I do or don't do, and both the lads beat me up when we come to a stop, is I don't use the back brake enough, because I'm so used to riding modern bikes where you've got twin discs and monumental stopping power. I tend to use the front brake a lot more, whereas both Dave and Rich says you've really got to use the back brake on these. So here we go. I can give it its head now. You probably notice that the clocks don't work. Well, they do work. It's just that on the first ride down here, they became slightly unscrewed. And at the next stop, I mentioned it to Dave, and he just tightened them up, and they sprang back into life. So, yeah, they do work. So, all in all, this is a beautiful bike, and even though it's 60 years of age, magnificent. I'll let you listen to it. So next up is Richard's TR6C, which is a 650, and this is an oiling frame, so you're sitting quite a bit higher on this one, and it took me a little while to get used to it. But you hear there's a different engine note on this. Like this is a 650, and it's got a single carb. But what really surprised me is not a massive on the road, not a massive difference. As we discussed later on, I went for fifth gear. Then did you notice? On the road in the riding like this, not a massive difference to the other bikes, but at the end of the day we did a bit of a drag race, which we talk about in the chat, and I was on this and I got absolutely trounced. But this is a very different bike to ride to the 68. The suspension feels a bit newer and better. The engine is lovely. I think the highlight of this is it's such a sweet engine, and if you listen to the exhaust, it's more mellow. It's a mellifluous engine note, just as strong and muscular sounding. But the other two, the Bonnevilles, are a bit hot roddy, whereas this is more of a gentleman's bike. This is the Steve McQueen bike, this one, and lovely. It's a lovely bike to ride. So this also has quite a bit of work done on it, because the lads tell the story of it later on. But what Dave's done, again, dynamically balanced the crank, lead shot in the handlebars, electronic ignition, raised the gearing a bit, and also in the gearbox. In this model they had a leaf spring in the gearbox. Oh, listen to that. Here comes Dave. I think Dave's on 68 there when he passed me. But he's changed it to the plunger in the gearbox, so that doesn't mean anything to me. Dave just wrote it down and I'm reading it out off the list. But I'm sure a lot of you out there will get it. So I think here we're just changing the route, because believe it or not, we don't know all of these routes like the back of our hand. And I'm riding along and I think, oh, where they've gone to. So you'll see what often happens when you're out riding classic bikes. So we have to turn back, because one of the reasons is one of the bikes has stopped. But in this case, I think Rich stopped the bike. But Rich, even though he's very fit and does he runs marathons and things, he has got very dodgy knees, so he's fine starting this bike, which is lower compression, but the two Bonnevilles, because of he's got a sore knee, Dave starts the bike, and towards the end of the day I was getting a bit, because I had an accident on a track and I've got 9 pins in my ankle, so I was having to get Dave to start the bike. So there's no shame in it, Rich. We're all getting older. But yeah, lovely. I really like this trophy. It's a very different bike to the Bonnevilles, and but very enjoyable, and it's just so beautiful with that high level exhaust. And there's some lovely villages we've been going through. This is in South Shropshire, anybody who's interested, or mid to South Shropshire. So I think we do a bike swap again. So finally I get to go on the 75. And this is one of my favourite bikes. Certainly I think it's my favourite bike of Dave's. Well, no, he's got a Laverge as well that I really like. But Dave has lavished a lot of time and expertise on this. And this must be one of the best Bonnevilles in the country in terms of rideability. And listen to this rascal go. This thing rides like a modern bike in many ways, but it still has the Meriden charm about it. So what Dave's done on this one, again, dynamically balanced the crank, lead shot in the handlebars. He's got a digital electronic ignition with a rev limiter on it, raised the gearing, he's cleaned up the inlet ports, Nickersill alloy barrels, he's got 32mm Mikuni carbs on it, Richard Darby fork dampers, Icon shocks on the back, a lithium battery, and an alloy caliper, a floating disc sleeve master cylinder. And I must say, this thing handles, the front brake on it is it's as good as a modern bike. You know, you can use it with, you know, with 2 fingers, and the handling is brilliant. You know, Dave did Prescott hill climb on this, and unfortunately he had a misfire, but we're doing it again next year, and I've got no doubt that he'll absolutely fly up the hill on this. But this is the real hot rod out of all of them. It just sounds great, doesn't it? Real honour to ride these bikes, and it's an honour to ride such well sorted bikes, and it's a tribute to Dave and to Rich. You know, Dave's done a lot of the mechanical work, well, he's done all the mechanical work on it, but you know, the guys keep them in such fine fettle, and they're just wonderful things. I think the lad's come past me here, maybe. No. Again, going through beautiful villages. There we go, that's where they come past. So Dave's on the trophy. And Rich obviously is riding the 1968. But look how different this looks, you know, with the high level exhaust on it. But we do this, you know, we go out and do lots of riding like this. We just take different bikes out. So here comes Rich, past me now. He's on the 68. And just listen to them. You can just pick up the 68 as well. That slightly, there's a slight cadence between the two bikes. It's like a squadron of Spitfires. What better way could there be to spend a November Saturday in England than riding these magnificent things? Go. I'll just let you listen to it. So yeah, just roll the throttle on this bike, you know, away I go. So, see the difference between Richard's bike, the TR6 and this one. The TR6 didn't have a rev counter on it. There they go. So there you go. Thank you very much for watching. We're all going to have a chat and talk about the bikes now. Right, welcome to the video.
Hello.
We are in Dave's kitchen.
Dave's kitchen, yeah.
We've been out today.
Dave's kitchen diner.
Kitchen diner.
Yes. Right. Yeah, they've just had the main course.
So we've been out. It's quite a chilly day today. It's the 9th of November?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
In the UK, so it's all a bit...
And it hit about 9 degrees at peak, didn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit cold. But to warm us up, we've been out on, it's Rich and Dave's bikes, 3 Triumph Twins, and I will hand it over to them to describe the bikes.
Yeah, so people who are familiar with the channel will have or can see all 3 bikes separately on separate videos. They're all back in the archive, if I can.
Yeah, if I can just butt in.
Put a link up.
Well, I'll put a link up, but they were done very early on and the sound isn't very good, and we're now significantly better with the sound.
Yeah, and your intros were crap as well.
They were.
Yeah.
And Mike's got his act together,
Finally.
Yeah. Anyway, all the bikes are in there, so there's 2 of mine, as Mike said, 1 of Richard's is a 71 650 trophy, high pipe trophy. Pretty standard. I rebuilt it. We imported it from the States. And what else can you say about it, Rich?
Yeah, I mean, when you got it, it was seized, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was from California. The chap had obviously used it for desert racing or some such, but all the mud had baked rock hard all into the barrels or whatever, so it basically didn't cool, and we think that's why it got seized.
Well, the exhaust valve. The exhaust valve had seized in the valve guide. So it was. I rebuilt it from the sludge trap up, but it's basically bog standard, isn't it? Apart from dynamically balanced crank.
Yeah. So it's a 650 TR6C. It's the first of the oil-in frames.
Yeah.
It's that first year when they had a taller frame, which they subsequently reduced the height. On the
which we'll talk about later.
Yeah, and it's a lovely bike. I've had it for a few years now.
Can I get you to tell the backstory on why you got the bike?
Yeah, Dave very kindly gave it to me as a best man gift for being best man at his wedding. So that was very kind of him, and got it at the right price from America. And then I paid him to rebuild it, and he did a great job on it, as you will.
Well, you didn't pay me to rebuild it. You paid for the bits, and I rebuilt it.
Yes.
And Dave's got a lovely Laverda Jota endurance racer, which he's going to give to me, but he just hasn't realised it yet.
Yeah, well, you haven't been my best man yet. But on the second wedding...
How about the worst man?
So, and then the other two bikes, the one is a 68 Triumph, so one of the last years of what they call the dry frames. Yeah. It's not standard. It's got a 750 kit on it. It's got a slightly hotter set of Megacycle camshafts, but hardly any different to the standard, fairly hot standard Triumph camshafts of the era. Sleeved amels, electronic ignition, same as Richard's has got. So other than that, again, dynamically balanced crank. They've all got 7-plate clutch kits, haven't they? So they've all got relatively light clutches.
Actually, mine had an Amel Premier fitted to it.
So it didn't need. That was about the only thing that didn't need doing.
What pipe are they? The standard pipes on yours?
Standard pipes.
They're the Burgess.
They've got various names, but Burgess Silencer, I think, was the original manufacturer. But and you'll find, and we talk about it, how they all got very distinctive exhaust notes. Yeah. They all sound like Triumph twins.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they sound, because we haven't seen all the footage yet, but it'll be interesting to see how your mic picks it up and whether they do sound different on the film.
And then the last bike is 75 Triumph. Again, there's quite a long video on that.
Yeah.
And that's the one I've had forever, well over 30 years.
And the backstory on that is related to your dad, isn't it?
Yeah, I bought a right-hand shift Bonneville off my dad, a UK spec one, which I should have kept. It was a lovely bike.
That was late 70s.
It was a 70s. Oh, what? I bought it in the late 70s. Yeah.
There was a square tank,
UK spec. And I sold it, as you do, to move on to other better things. So I always wanted another right-hand shift Bonnie, and in the meantime I owned loads of left-hand shift Bonnies, and everything I learnt on those I've put into this one and more. So it's got Nickerson barrels, slightly hotter again, Megacycle camshafts, hotter than the 68.
High compression, is it?
Yeah, slightly gas-flowed head by the very great Richard Peckett. Mikuni carbs, bigger than standard, modified silencers, balanced crank, clutch has been done, various other smaller mods, but and it's quite a bit of a hot rod.
And it's your soul bike, isn't it?
Yeah.
He explained to me once, what's a soul bike? Tell us what a soul bike is.
Did I? Oh, from my memory.
You came up with it.
Did I?
Yeah. It's the bike that you wouldn't say. It's the one bike that...
It's the bike that he probably wants to be buried with.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, nice way of putting it, Rich. Thanks for that. Oh, I see. Yeah, I don't remember saying that, but there you go. It's a good job I don't remember saying that.
Yeah. So
there we go. There's the backstory on 3 Triumph twins, all subtly different, all separated by only 6 or 7 years, but a lot of evolution went in relative terms, not so much to the engines out of Meriden, but the frames and the running gear and the oil-in frame, and then the evolution of that. So we thought it'd be a nice, interesting comparison.
And even though they're only 7 years apart, as you'll find out, they all ride so differently.
They do.
Well, this is what I mean by the evolution, Rich. You know, very
Yeah.
different.
And it was a good excuse to get out and roar around the lanes and scare the wildlife,
Which we certainly did.
which we did.
And so where were we today, Mike?
We were in Shropshire and Monmouthshire.
We didn't go anywhere near Monmouthshire, did we?
It was all sort of mid and
I
south
thought
Shropshire.
so going through Monmouthshire.
Jesus,
No.
he's naughty.
And we did, how many miles did we do?
We
today,
did
Mike? Were you
83
paying-
miles.
Oh, you were paying attention. Yeah.
80 odd miles in
Yeah.
sub-zero
And it
temperatures.
was pretty chilly, but yeah, no, it was.
Anyway, that's
And again,
enough.
as some of your footage will show, we did a bit of sort of trail riding
Yeah.
almost.
We
in
did do
real
some trail
muddy
riding.
lanes.
Yeah, yeah.
So how do they ride? So, from my perspective, 3 very different bikes. I've spoken at length in the other video about the 75, which I think is just fantastic. It's got brakes that are as good as a modern bike. It handles fantastically. It's just lithe, pokey. It's one of my favourite bikes I've ridden. It's just for what is
Ever.
yeah, it is. I think really in when you think how old it is and how well it performs. And I was saying to the lads earlier on, you know, you think about a modern Triumph or an Enfield.
When you say a modern Triumph, you mean a modern Bonneville?
a modern Bonneville, yeah,
And a modern Enfield.
yeah, a modern twin,
Yeah.
and modern retro, and you think, oh, you know how close they are. They look similar, but the riding experience is very different. There's something about I won't say the word proper, but a original
Meriden. Triumph.
They're lithe, they're light, they're responsive, they're what's the word? You know, it's not
Visceral.
Well,
visceral is
yeah.
exactly the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And as we were discussing this just before we put the camera on, and I think that what makes it so rewarding compared to, say, a modern retro, and like you, I've got nothing against modern retros. I love the Enfield Interceptor and whatever, and I've ridden a Beezer Gold Star and whatever, and I enjoyed them both. But what makes it so rewarding is it's more challenging.
Yes.
And it's like the 20s flat tankers. The fact that it was so challenging made it so rewarding, didn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the 75. So talking about challenging, the biggest challenge I found on the other 2 bikes was the front brake.
On my 71.
On your 71,
Yeah,
with
the comical hub.
the comical hub, which wasn't that effective.
Yeah, it's all right.
I mean,
It's
then
all right.
again, if you regularly ride old bikes, you get used to these things and you learn to anticipate and you build up huge Popeye forearms to compensate.
Like
In my
yours
case, hasn't worked.
like yours is. And the 60 and the 68, it works really well until you have to emergency.
Well, you
brake.
can't treat it like a modern disc
No,
brake, you
no.
know, which to be, as you said, the 75 with mods, floating disc, alloy caliper, 13mm master cylinder, all which are different from standard spec. If you'd ridden it as a standard spec, you'd have found the disc slightly more powerful, but quite wooden.
Yeah.
And by the standards of the day, that was an excellent disc brake.
Yeah.
That one on that is, as you say, pretty much up to modern standards. So it's a bit unfair, isn't it? You know,
It is a bit.
because the 68 twin leading shoe, which they use 68, 69,
I
70,
found it wonderful compared to
there you
mine.
go. And you know, compared to pretty much any other drum brake, and certainly any other drum brake out of the British industry, it's fabulous.
It worked well.
But I know what you mean. I agree with you.
And I think it's like the bike, the whole bike, and we were talking about it when we stopped for coffee. Within certain parameters, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
But you quickly find,
That's it.
yeah.
Well,
And it's like there was one point I had to do a really hard braking because of your erratic riding style.
sorry about that.
And it kind of went a bit beyond, and I was like, well, kind of the forks, the dip and and it's they certainly work better than, but really everything else, they were fantastic. The handling on both bikes was brilliant,
It's superb, yeah.
and the power, the 75 obviously it's got more power, but on the road, like we did a drag race.
Is that on camera?
No,
But
it was in
anyway.
controlled environment and on a private road. We did a bit of a drag race, and as you'd expect, I jumped I was on Richard's trophy, and I jumped the start.
I cheated, I think is the word you're looking
I cheated, and Dave just went woof past me, and then Richard went woof past me. So it's as you'd expect.
Yeah.
But when you ride them on the road,
it's not so
much.
apparent,
It's not so apparent. But they've got that lovely Triumph. Unless you've ridden one,
unless you've ridden a good one as well,
good one.
because quite a few people have got maladjusted, worn out, dreaded previous owner, inflicted all sorts of issues. And there's nothing worse than a bad Triumph Twin.
And it's a tribute to the way that you set the bikes
The
up.
one thing I would say about any Triumph Twin is if you're rebuilding one, get the crank dynamically balanced. It makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
Richards, rigidly mounted bars, not even the rubber bushes which go sloppy, 70 mile an hour, dead nut smooth.
Yeah,
dead nut smooth.
Yeah.
I'm not talking for a parallel twin, it's dead nut smooth.
I would say probably as smooth as something like a modern
Yeah,
Enfield.
there you go. There you go.
Going back to what we were talking about just a moment ago about the comparison between, a 60s or 70s British bike and a modern retro like an Enfield or a piece of Gold Star or whatever. The thing that really makes them more demanding and perhaps rewarding, as we were saying, is the brakes. And not only that, the other thing that we all talked about, men of our age, after 80 miles on demanding roads and cold weather, it's quite tiring on an old bike.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're on an Interceptor or a Beazer Gold Star,
You'd be more relaxed,
you'd be a lot fresher, and you wouldn't, the brakes, and you're not kick-starting.
Yeah, kick-starting is great fun. It's a challenge at the start of the day. But when you've stopped to take photographs, you've got to start it again.
I don't know what you two guys are talking about. You only kick-started them once for the camera, and you nunts for the camera. I have to start them all the time.
But
here's the thing, right? You're right, and it is a bit artificial today because there was lots of stopping and starting and having to redo going through past the camera because Mike's
missed the shot again.
Missed the shot
again.
Anyway, but
the amateurs we have to work with.
But it is tiring. But the less tiring a bike is, the less challenging. I'm not saying a bad bike equals a better experience, but within an authentic experience, it adds up to something. And all those other bikes that are more effortless are inevitably more forgettable as a result.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's
where classic bikes.
And I think that's where the 68 grabbed me. It's the bike with the most charm out of the three.
I agree with that.
You look down, and I think I've got the picture of it, but you look down and there's this wasp-shaped tank, and then these two chrome carb air cleaners on it, and it just looks so good. And there's just something about riding it. It's, I was following Dave on quite an open bit of road, and we're probably doing 65, something like that, a sweeping corner, and I was just sitting behind, really enjoying it. And I thought, as I said when we stopped, how old is this bike?
Yeah.
It's 56.
56 years old we worked it out, didn't we?
56 years old. And it was just, I don't know, it was just wonderful.
Well, a lovely experience on a bike doesn't change, does it?
No.
Some kid, probably 80% chance they were American riding a 68 Bonneville, because that's where 80% of them went, fresh out of Vietnam. His dream would have been to buy a Triumph Twin and do exactly what we've just done today.
Yeah.
And that experience hasn't changed.
But warm.
Yeah.
You're not on dual carriageways, you're not on motorways, they're not much fun in heavy traffic. They'll do it.
Yeah.
I used to ride that 68 Triumph in the middle of London, but it wasn't huge amounts of fun. It was nice and manoeuvrable, it was more the brakes and other people. But the point being, on the right roads, on empty A roads, quiet B roads, Nadgery stuff, it's as much fun now as it was in 1968. Or 1971 or 1975, whatever.
Cool.
And as we said earlier when we were out riding, we are lucky. Around here the roads are pretty quiet. We are very lucky, aren't we?
So to sum up,
So
if you had to only keep one of your two bikes,
if the garage was on fire, which would I drag out?
include Richard's in there.
If Richard, I was looking after Richard's bike, but inadvertently set fire to my garage, which would I? Well, obviously, I'm not going to drag Richard's out, am I? I mean, irrespective, it's Richard's, so let it burn.
But if it was yours,
Oh, if it was mine, it wouldn't be the high. It wouldn't be Richard's. I do like it, and I knew he'd like it, which is why I chose that particular bike. Richard's a real
And
sucker.
you chose well.
Yeah, you chose wisely. Yeah. I think Richard likes single carbs. I missed slightly that surge in the mid-range. There isn't a huge difference between single carb and twin carb drives of equal tune, but there is some.
Yeah.
But it's more hassle balancing them. So I wouldn't pick the high pipe trophy, but I like it, and I think you could go huge distances on Richard with that lovely 3.5 gallon tank. It's nice and comfy, and it all works, and it's such a sweet engine. So it wouldn't be that. Between my two, the 68 and the 75, to ride fast, it would be the 75 because it just works better.
And it handles better. It soaks up the bumps. I mean, how many potholes have we been over to do? At times when we were just pushing it a little bit, I just thought, I hope we don't hit a pothole around this blind bend, because it could become unsettled. Whereas the late ones don't.
No.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. But to answer your question, the bike of the Triumphs that I hop on the most, and actually the bike I hop on the most out of all my bikes, which includes the Commando, which includes the BMW and all the other stuff, is the 68.
why?
Because of that charm.
Yeah.
Because of that authenticity. Because of it was the best. It was the bike to own in 1968 for very good reasons.
Yes.
It was somebody once said, Cycle World said, the 68 Bonneville or the 69 or the 70 or even the 67 or whatever, they would be memorable bikes even if they did nothing well, because they're beautiful.
Yes.
Right, they're stunningly beautiful bikes. But the fact is they did lots of other things really well. Maybe not the best, they didn't handle as well as a feather bed or whatever, but they did everything really well. They summed up the pinnacle of pretty much parallel twins.
Yeah.
You could argue the Norton Commando does some things better, but it doesn't do the same things as a Triumph twin.
Yeah.
So that's why I love it. And just looking at it.
So that would be the one?
I think so, yeah. Despite the fact they'd have to bury me with the 75, they'd have to make room for the 68 as well.
And taking that a stage further, in your garage, it would be the Triumph that you would pull out.
I think, I think it
Out of all
would.
your
I think it
bikes.
would, yeah. I'm not. I go, the Commando, the 75, but I think it would be the 68, yeah.
So I can have the Laverda.
Yeah, take it before it. It's not when you might as well have it.
Because I know you love the Commando as well.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Commando's a fantastic bike on different roads. Let's not start talking about Commando. But yeah.
If they were all yours.
Well, fortunately for you, Dave, and I'm not just saying this because you got it for me, but out of all the three bikes, generally speaking, they all have pros and cons, but I'd go for my trophy, the 71 trophy. And the reason being, what you said, people know from previous videos, I always harp on about tank range and I hate filling up. But nice big tank, it's practical, fuel efficient. I love single carbs, so you haven't got to faff about balancing carbs. And it's nice, soft, roughly power. It's a slightly lower compression, so even my knackered knees can start it. The only drawback, as we've alluded to, is the comical hub brake, which sometimes I think, but then you ride accordingly.
I don't think it's that bad. It's just not got a lot of feel.
And I'm a riding god, so I don't really use the brakes much anyway.
No.
You don't.
Well, when you hit... Yeah.
One reason I bonded better with it is because I took on board your advice, because you always whack me around the head when we go out riding classic bikes. I don't use the back brake enough.
Yeah, and especially on Triumphs where they've got a really good back brake.
And so I used the back brake a lot more when I was riding your bike. And you don't need to use it on a modern, and there isn't much weight on the back on a modern, but on a classic where you're sat like that, there's a lot more weight. You can use it much more proportionally, and it does add to the braking effect quite significantly. What about you? Mate, right, okay. I loved them all, really enjoyed them all, and it's close. it's actually closer than I thought it was going to be honest.
He's bigging it up. Me and Rich know what he's going to say.
Yeah. Initially, I got on Rich's and I didn't really get on with it because, even though I've ridden it before, it's a bit taller, which you would think, because I'm a bit taller, it would fit me better. But I found that the other two bikes, you sit in them,
slouched in them a bit,
and they're lovely. Yeah. On Rich's, you're kind of up a bit more.
Yeah, it's more of a perch, isn't it?
And I couldn't quite, and that's because of the oiling frame. The early oiling frame, it was a bit high. And then you said to me, before I had my second ride on it, you said try some different seating. I don't know if you noticed I was sliding backwards and forwards.
I thought you were just trying to get your nose on the tank to keep up with me. Oh, okay.
Yes, I was actually. So I got a lot more comfortable on it, and
as you say, using the back brake as well.
Using the back brake, so lovely power delivery. You know that. It's a gentle.
Yeah.
It's gentle, but it's still got that
Still
lovely,
got plenty of go,
and a lovely noise.
Yeah, and when I was following you were on the 75. I was you weren't making ground on me particularly.
No.
The 68, it's even though the other one's a hot rod, even the 75's a hot rod. It is a hot rod. The 68
it certainly was in its day.
Yeah,
and it's tuned up a bit.
It's got that. It's not as smooth as the others. It's not vibratory at all, but it's got a slightly harder edge, hasn't it? To it, and the suspension's a bit, it hasn't had the work that your 75s had done to it.
And the 71 and the 75 Triumphs, they had far better forks, better damp forks than the late 60s bikes.
Even as standard,
But I love the sound on it. When you and it does make a pop noise, which we want to get rid of. And I really, when I first rode the 68, I think the clutch was slipping. And
also it was the needle jets were warm, so it was running rich in the middle range.
It wasn't running that well. This time,
it's a lot better. And new seat foam has helped.
Yes.
50-year-old seat foam wasn't doing its job.
But for me, and you guys know, it has to be the 75 because that is, it's just such a great all-rounder. You could do good long day rides on it. You could do a hill climb like you did.
Unfortunately, it had a misfire due to the ignition switch. But
it's for a classic bike. It's a performance bike.
Well, it's very light, isn't it? And
if I can take it back to the flat tank bikes that we rode, the 75 is the Scott. And I prefer things a little bit more sporting. And that's 75.
It's a bit more of a hooligan bike.
It is, and that's the bike I would have. But they're all beautiful, and just the look of them. And you can see some of the photos that we took, and they're lovely. Yeah. So there you go. So thank you for watching. Thank you guys for letting me loose on your bike.
Pleasure.
And there you go.
Take care.
Yeah.
Keep the shiny side up.
See you in the next one.